what you can know in a sensation, it'll take you a long time to express it, a lot longer than the moment of that sensation. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if
So
I,
what's
if
the
I
purpose
said,
of what's the purpose of those communications then in the moment? It's like then that means there's a timely transmission of
yeah,
of that, and then whatever the outcome of the interaction, whatever the goal of the information exchange, because people are
yeah,
asking us questions, and when we're
yes,
like pulling information through us, and then we're trying to
yeah,
digest it almost personally,
yeah,
tailored custom for them, and then it's like it's a whole cascade effect, and then
yeah.
whatever happens on the other side for them, and then on to the next and on to the next. And as a healer type, okay, I
Yes,
find it's
yes, I get you. Yep,
yeah,
I'm
it's
with you. Yeah,
it's
when you're
interesting.
working with someone. Yep.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
now
that's
you're
full on.
switching channels, switching channels.
Yep,
I
yep.
find that exhausting. I do. I have not been able to master in my physical body currently. So before I was doing it, no problem, because I had a lot of motor.
Yeah,
But now I'm like,
yep.
no, dude, this is just, I can't. I'm not.
Yep.
I'm not like I was in service to that level, to the point where I understand that how to do it better now, almost like that's
Yep.
fine. That's fine to bleed out for other people. um,
Yeah. But
but
it's
also no.
dangerous. Yeah, I know. I know. It's dangerous. Yeah. It's really it's
It is.
dangerous.
It
It's
is.
life threatening actually. It can be life
Yeah.
threatening. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a theoretical danger. It's a real biological danger. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
It
can break
really.
yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And burnout is a phrase that's tossed about, but it's a real
Yeah.
place.
Oh
And,
shit, yeah.
and also there's lessons that you're trying to now reflect on, like, where did this all originate from? Where were my intentions all the way, really coming from? And where were my ego bits in all of that? And, did I have any savior complexes? Did I have any, aspects of how I overworked myself, or I was overcompensating? Because I always check myself to make sure, am I acting in godly ways as much as I can, in as true and in integrity as I possibly can? And then what are my triggers and
Yeah.
traumas, and like ego bits, and things that I've identified in myself that are like a work in progress of your life orchestra.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get rid of your
Absolutely.
ego
So
pieces like that you've developed. You master them. You put them in a smooth machine. Excuse me, that was
you
ironic,
go.
but
It's morning.
yeah.
Good timing.
I love when that happens.
Uh, go
But
on.
you're
Yeah.
etching it, and honing yourself, because you then, as long as you can identify those aspects of you, then you're that's, to me, that's like a definition of enlightenment. You're enlightened to
Yes.
your own awareness, to that
When you know where you're
level
coming
where you
from.
you have self-discipline, and you're able to, like, say, okay, I'm gonna that's an impulse.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
impulse control. Okay, I figured that one out. You know what I mean? Or,
Yep.
oh, I feel an emotion. This is what most people are having a hardest time with, don't you think? They have an
Yeah.
emotion. They don't maybe like the feeling of the emotion in their body,
Exactly.
and they just try to take off from it. They're out the
Hmm.
door, like,
Mm.
what, in
In
whatever
so
which
many
way.
different ways. Mm.
So many myriad of
Yeah.
addictive ways to get the
Pretty
heck
much
out.
everything they're doing in their life. Actually, I
Yeah,
mean, pretty much everything people are doing in their life tends to be driven by unknowns. Yeah. So
yeah,
we think we have choices, we think we have control, but I, as an individual, it appears that way. Like if I see, this is just what I've, it's very interesting you've started the conversation with this, because it's something that I've just been thinking a little bit about lately, observing a bit in myself and life lately. And it's very, very interesting as a human being. We can um, narrow ourselves down to this singular unit that's functioning in its own way down its own path. But in reality, when you really start to break that down, and like you're coming back to where am I coming from, And then you discover what's really driving this action or this thought or this feeling. Where is it really coming from? What am I really interdependent with? And I start to discover that really I have very little, if any, control over my direction of my life, and any choices. I can think I've got choices based on whatever it is I happen to be at this moment conscious of. Yeah, but I'm not just a thinking being. Yeah, thinking is actually pretty superficial. And there's as you know, so many other sensations and feelings that, or people talk about emotions. You know, I'll bring it back to a really simple thing. Just the body's sensations are multitude. And there are a lot of different sensations going on there. And there's a lot being processed that we never actually, the healing process itself is something beyond our cognitive understanding. Yeah. The healing process itself is a process of nature. We can figure it out a bit, but when it comes down to it, we could never duplicate it because we don't really understand how the body does it. I want the body being nature. Yeah. So we know we heal. And if we're lucky, we know that our system will heal itself. And ultimately, I have got no idea how I'm going to heal this, whatever it happens to be. As long as I don't react to it, as long as I just keep responding to my needs as much as I can be aware of them. But what I think is going on, what I think I need, it's like what I think I need, I might shoot for that. I want to resolve this problem. And the next thing I know, there's something going on over here. I mean, in the different part of my body, because that had to happen first. I didn't know that. Only the body is in a sense of knowing. I don't mean knowing like the thought process, but a much more automatic, almost like gravity. It's just happening automatically. The thing that
Well,
is most,
it's like your oversoul connection, or you are connecting to your own inner bigness. People are seeking answers. They want to know and they want
yeah,
control so much because they feel
yeah,
so out of control. And
yeah,
so it's ripe
yep.
for cults, it's ripe for conditioning, it's ripe for
Mm,
religion, it's ripe for, people going in the they have needs. They're going to
yeah.
if
But
somebody
we want to
provides
be,
an emotional outlet for them, they're going to probably
yeah.
go there,
Or they're going to give
because of
them
everything.
yeah, they're going to give
Yeah.
them the answer they want.
Yeah,
Then if
exactly.
you give people the answer to the thing they're most frightened of, then you've got a marketable product. I mean, most people know this of me who've ever heard me talk. I'm not in favor of belief systems. I'm not in favor of religion. I'm not in favor of anything that simply has been for thousands or hundreds or 10 years, whatever, of years, just another mind control system to direct people to feel, think, and act in ways that fit in with the system. Because they're giving them promises, that they're giving them promises. What happens when I die? Oh, don't worry about that. You reincarnate. Well, that's great. People want to believe in that. They want to. I'm not saying either way here. I'm saying, it's not relevant to me because right now I'm alive. So it's not right now relevant to me. But yeah, so you're giving them a promise, you're giving them an idea, not a reality, but an idea.
Yes.
And so that idea gives people such a relief. But when you look at any relief that falsity gives, and I'll be that bold right now, any false relief ends up causing harm to the natural process. For example, if you grab hold of the idea that someone close to you who's died has just reincarnated or didn't really die at all, they're just still living in some area, then it has a tendency to give the person a relief, a temporary relief or escape from the reality of their own lived experience, which is they've lost that person. Yeah, so that person's gone. If they've lost that person, as far as I'm concerned, if somebody dies, whatever that happens to mean in the world at large, yeah. But what does it mean to me? It doesn't mean any of that. It really doesn't mean anything to me. What it means to me, none of that stuff that people are saying, no religious answer is an answer for me, because the answer for me, I've already got that. And that answer, and so has everybody else. That answer is, I've just lost someone and I feel that loss. Yeah. And if I change that in any way, to say, oh, they're not dead, they've gone to heaven, or they've reincarnated or whatever, then I disassociate from my loss. You see what I'm sort of saying? So what I'm using this as an example to say, if I use these comforters, they're great at first, but they prevent the natural healing process that would have occurred. If I could just feel the loss and really feel that without wholeheartedly, not with the buffer of, oh, but maybe they've gone to heaven or whatever, without that buffer, all I've got is, from my point of view, in my living experience, that person no longer exists for me, or doesn't exist. And if they don't exist, what I'm actually left with, a clean break. I know this sounds terrible, but I'm left with an ending. Yeah. And that ending is the beginning of me feeling that loss, and truly feeling that loss, not trying to pretend I haven't really lost anybody because I'm trying to hang on to a belief system that gives me a comforter. Yeah. And so I'm not saying whether the belief system of reincarnation or heaven and hell is right or wrong. I'm saying it doesn't relate to anything in reality. It doesn't relate to me as a human being, or anybody as a human being. What relates to each and every one of us when someone dies is we lose someone. Yeah. And we have lost something. It's about our loss. It's not even about it's not necessarily about their death, particularly if their death is their end. Well, it's not about them at all. It's all about me and my loss. And feeling that loss heals me. This is what I wanted to say. Feeling that sense of grief or that loss, it's a big thing. Yeah. It's because it tells how entangled I have been with that person. So that's why I wanted to just use that one example of they bother me, these belief systems, not personally, semi-personally, because they bother me that, yeah, semi-personally, because I'm
No,
still a
really,
part
actually,
of,
really personally. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, well, in the sense that for me, grieving is no problem. I'm not going to get caught up in a belief, but when I see when I see the effect that it has on making the natural process that would have occurred automatically if you didn't get in the way with all your ideas about life, all your beliefs about life, that natural process would have takes people very quickly through the healing process, or a lost process, actually, with minimal misery. Yeah. Whereas if you hang on to it, how do you ever get over it? You can't hang on. You can't really fully embrace a loss that you don't, because of your belief system, you don't sort of believe has even happened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you're stuck in a limbo. That's what I'm trying to say. So
It's like
religion and beliefs.
suppression is
Yeah.
just as bad as avoidance or abandonment, right? It's a running away from
Yeah.
it, right? It's an
Yeah.
escapism. So that's on, I
It
see
is
that on the
escapism.
same level as a suppression. And that's why
Yes.
I'm so impassioned, and I'm sure you are as well, to just
Yeah.
get it right and excuse me, and prevent this whole negative cascade effect that, if you just addressed it in that moment and allowed and accepted the time to mourn and to feel and to dive into
Yes.
it, and to accept and to grieve and to weep. And also I find, and
Yeah.
where do you sit on this of,
Yeah.
okay, I'll finish that thought, then I'll go there. Just what I was saying is
Okay.
that we're trying to prevent all that misery, and it gets us upset when we see these things happen, because we
Yes.
know that this is all is unnecessary. And when people go into these rituals and these sort of cult scenarios or religious scenarios, I understand what they're doing,
Yeah.
but it's really
Of course.
difficult to relay this to them without them feeling
Mm.
like you're trying to kick the crutch out from under them. You know what I mean? So it's like trying to communicate in loving ways, or let them go through their process. But now, after, they come with more to do. There's more to clear. There's more work in the long run, and we want to prevent that ultimately through just going inside the body.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of these spaces will put people into prayer and meditation, but what type, right? And we can go into
Yeah.
that later. But
Yeah, sure. Good.
there's a
Yeah.
lot here. Yeah.
There's a lot here.
Um,
You're on
yeah.
fire. I thought you were sleepy. Holy shit.
This is me sleepy. No, this is actually me sleepy.
Okay.
I might
Go,
lose some
girl.
trains of thought though. That's the problem when
Who
you're
cares? That's right.
when you're sleep deprived. Yeah, who
Yeah.
cares?
No, no, that's fine.
Exactly. But the so okay, so let's go on that thread, and then I'll circle back to what I was, because it's too many topics at once.
All
Um,
right.
but okay, I'll just park it. So what I was going to say is that sometimes the grieving in an empathic way is satisfying for me, where it's like a workaround where, so say I lose someone, I'm sad
Yes.
for their loved ones, and so I'm not just sad because I lost the person. I'm sad because also they lost there's other mourners that I care about, right? So
Okay.
I'm empathically feeling them,
Yes.
and mourning, maybe even for them or with them. Okay.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and this is why, a funeral process is important, or a gathering
Yeah.
after a death is important, and these sorts of things, because it allows the release, it allows for some release,
Yep.
and acknowledgement. Um,
Yep.
but so I just wanted to park that, because I was just,
Okay.
as a it's an interesting bypass idea that you could not do your own work and just do somebody else, think you're doing it energetically for somebody else, as an idea, right? Because you still aren't going in and doing it's still an avoidance
Correct.
technique.
Yeah.
You're still expressing, so maybe
Yeah.
there's a relief valve
Yeah.
somehow. Anyway, I wanted to explore that idea with you later. So the whole concept of having um, the work inside be something that we don't want to accept. Why don't we want to accept it? Like, why? Because the pain in the long run of not is higher than the
Yeah. Way
pain of
worse.
just,
Yeah.
right. So we've established that. So then why? I mean, we kind of know the answer, but let's
Mm.
play with it,
Let's
sort
unpack
of,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
there's some self-sabotage is what I'm saying there. There's some maybe some lack of self-love, or worse, self-loathing involved. So maybe it's like a
Mhm.
punishment idea. I'm going to avoid that energy so that I can punish myself, so later I can suffer more. Is that a subtle,
And
subconscious thing that's happening, or a
can
shadow?
I just to keep
Yeah.
up with you there, when you say I'm going to avoid that energy, are you meaning avoid the pain that I would
Feeling,
feel? Yeah.
sensation, um,
Hmm.
the multiple layers of whatever's coming, at you in that
Yeah.
time, whatever that feels like for you. Yeah.
The first thing that came to me as you're saying that, a couple of things, but the first thing that came to me as you're saying that was that people, due to the ability to disassociate, and I'll explain that a bit more as we go on, essentially the ability to think about something enables us to become once removed from the sensation of it in our thinking about it. So this is a type of split. Yeah, this is a disassociation from the unavoidable life lived experience of the human organism. Yeah, so the human being has this ongoing lived experience, which what people don't realize is we don't have what I would say, what I've always found is we actually have no choice. That this is not something we can choose to either have affect us or not affect us. Yeah, we are affected. We are affected by everything because we are basically electrified dust. We're basically a living organism that is in no way, in reality, unaffected by everything else that makes up the whole of our existence. Each and every one of us together as an organism. As an organism living on a world that's a part of that organism, and has, in a sense, enabled that whole organism and each individual part of that organism to come into existence, as an expression of that world. I'm talking in this point from the point of view of the natural world, not the spiritualist's approach. I'm not arguing one against the other, but where the spiritualist will think that a very basic way of putting it is a spiritualist may have this idea that we are some sort of disembodied being that comes into this world from some other world, comes into this world incomplete, and in order to somehow establish a better state. In other words, to evolve, to improve on ourselves. Whereas for me, I have no experience like that. That has never been something that's sat with me, and I mean, it obviously did when I was a monk, but that was brainwashing. That was very different. I was willingly brainwashing and self-hypnotizing myself with these ideas. So it's just a mind control system. But up until that point, so up until the age of 18, and then after that point, I returned back to this very only thing I know is that I know that this exists. This which I know as myself does exist, in a very simple way. And I know that this came out of my mother's womb. Yeah. So I know where I came from in that sense. I know that, and I think everybody knows that fundamental thing, that I came from my parents. Yeah. So my parents are my creators in a sense. Yeah. So my parents bring me into existence, and it goes back and back and back and back and back and back, like through generations. But I'm not getting too far off the point here, because the thing is, we have this idea then that we are born. In that way, I see that I was born complete, not born incomplete. So it flips it around, like you said at the beginning of our talk, turn everything upside down. If I look at it this way, then when an orange grows on a tree, you don't look at that orange when it's finished growing and think, now we've got to improve on it. You think, now we have the fruit of the tree, and as it's growing, it's perfectly forming. And in the same way with a human being, or any animal, any creature, any organism, in fact, it's born with every potential of its existence ready to, inside of it. I find that anyway. By the time I hit puberty, I don't have to go and study a book on sexuality and puberty. If I'm a healthy person, if not been damaged or harmed, it's going to come automatically out of the sensations of information and the sensations of self-expression that this body is now ready to come out with and express into the world. So in that sense, I'm born a really unique creature. And I have something in me I've come into the world as a completely new expression of this whole world out of which I've come. So I'm not looking to improve upon myself, because there's nothing wrong with me. I'm simply going to continue expressing myself and bringing something new into the world that perhaps has in some ways never been there before. Yeah. So we've flipped something upside down there, because it takes all that pressure off of, there's something lacking. I've got to really work hard to improve. And then when we do have a problem, like we say, when we do have a pain, we do have a problem, if we're looking at it from the point of view that these are the things that are showing there's something lacking in us, then that gives us a type of objection, judgment, criticism, guilt, feeling bad about being sick or whatever it happens to be. Whereas if it's, already we're set up to see this as something I must conquer, something that is my enemy, or something that shows that I am somehow lacking because I have this or that condition, of going on that's abnormal. Whereas if I'm looking at from the other side, from the other way, which I've just expressed about what I see as the only thing that I've seen as a natural person, or as a natural creature, as an organic being coming into expression, these imbalances are also just adjustments along the way. They're not our enemy. And we've talked about this before, like this illness, pain, whatever. It's not there to harm me. It's there as a part of my intelligence, which I know you fully understand. So if that's part of my intelligence, that shows that I'm already somehow equipped in ways that I may not be able to cognitively understand, but I don't need to. I just need to not fight against it, not react to it. And I think when you said before, why do people, I suppose in a sense, react, or why are they worried about getting that sadness? Well, I don't think people don't want to. they don't know this. They don't, they're not educated. They haven't discovered it for themselves, or they've been completely and utterly brainwashed by religion and the medical profession and so on. They've been utterly fooled by the thinking man, by the intellectual, which is an outside-in study of himself, like you said about science. When you observe something from the outside in, there's no way you can understand the human being that way. It's impossible, because the human being can only know himself from the inside out. If you find, yeah, I can't. The way I think about myself won't tell me much about myself at all, and whatever it tells me, it's going to be distorted. It's going to be an interpretation at best of what even if I try and tell you how I feel, I'm sad now. Well, I can use the word sad, but that doesn't really capture what I am actually in the living experience of right now in the moment of sadness. That cannot be captured. Encapsulate cannot be understood. It cannot be comprehended through thought, because thought can't feel. Yeah, thought there's no life in thought. Is not a living thing in that sense. It's just an expression
That's a good
of the living
t-shirt.
thing.
Thought can't feel. That's
Can't
a good
feel.
one.
So
That's a good
and if you
t-shirt.
can't feel, you can't know. So this is a knowing we're talking about. There's knowledge, which is thought, but there's knowing, which is sense based. Yeah. So the animal can sense and therefore know how he's going. Yeah. I know I'm sick. I know I'm unhealthy, but I don't want to get away from your really important point. Why is it so hard? I think that we've been badly brainwashed. And so we've learnt to react against things that are natural occurrences inside of us. And that causes us to actually, if we're in pain and we react to that, we're bringing our thinking into a sensory process, our feeling process. What happens when that happens? What happens when you add thinking to feeling is you exaggerate it, you emotionalize it.
That's a mess.
Yeah? And that's a mess. And the big difference between emotion which is I'm using the word emotion in the meaning of I'm adding thinking to the way I am and the way I feel, whereas as opposed to feeling, which I might make it simpler, physical sensation, which is purely the way I am, the way I feel. Yeah. So it's not being exaggerated. So if I just feel that sensation, it will come to its own natural end with the minimum suffering that I can possibly have to go through that process. But if I add emotion to that, the trouble with that is it's got no way to end, because emotion is based on that repetition of that story of being, in objection to the way it is, and I can't accept it there's no capacity to accept something that I've already seen as through that confusion. So it's very important for us to, it's just a huge thing for people to understand though, and to actually, I think, take seriously. But this is where I suppose for me, for the last 40 odd years, what I've been trying to communicate to people, we were talking about you and I, we communicate this to people. There's a great resistance to had this communication. Yeah. People have a great resistance because they're, as you were saying before, like the comfort zone. Yeah. They've got the comfort of, I want to believe in life after death to ease my pain when my friend dies, without realizing that it's actually increasing their pain, because it's not allowing them to actually heal. And it's also giving them the wrong understanding of a death or of a loss, that it's something bad and treacherous and it will leave you in some way worse off. Yeah. Rather than, I suppose I should just finish that little spot there, because people are listening to this, so I don't want to be, people will be listening to this. So, well, what else can it be? Is that when I get involved with someone, when we get involved with one another, we get really close, we affect one another and we become a little bit like one another. So in other words, if you and I, even though we've only had 2 or 3 conversations, we already are starting to feel some involvement. In other words, you have already become, to a smaller degree than say your boyfriend or your husband, but still or your greatest friend, but you've already become a significant part of my life, i.e., you are a part of my thinking, you're a part of my feeling. Yeah. So and the more I'm with you and the more you're with me, we become, in that sense, we become almost more and more a part of each other. And the Buddhists would say, this is attachment. Yeah. Okay, it is attachment, but that is unavoidable unless you are psychopathic. Yeah, it's unavoidable, and unless you're a sociopath and you're traumatized and disassociated from yourself to begin with, only then can you then be disassociated from the other person. But the thing about that is that disassociation is imaginary because it's only thought-based. It's a thought reaction. The fact is you are still being affected by other people just because you're in denial of that effect, yeah, and you don't feel yourself to be an empath. Just because you're in denial of that effect mentally, you think you're not being affected, but you are. And if anybody listening, think about it for 5 seconds and tell me, is there any time in the world, any time in your life when you've gone out for the day and been completely unaffected by people around you? Highly unlikely. Yeah. And even if you're really, really numb, you come home feeling different. So we are affected, whether we want to admit it or not. So let's just go with it. Let's say we are affected and we are connected. Yeah. And then the danger is one day you're going to die and I'm going to feel something that I would say, someone really close to me dies. What am I going to feel? Is I'm going to feel them as they exist in me. This is just one way of putting it, literally dying inside of me, like coming to an end inside of me. And that's grieving. You're actually, so this is not, and this leaves you the way you were, pretty much the way you were, in my experience anyway. It leaves you pretty much the way you were before you were actually integrated with that person so intimately. Yeah. And so you just return to what you were before. And I think this is the very important part of endings, because if I'm in a relationship, and particularly if there's pain and difficulty in the relationship, we get more attached because we've caused some harm to each other. We've stirred each other up. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm saying this has happened. So we become, so we feel the harm. You would think you'd be more upset about losing someone who's been mean to you. So you would think you'd be more upset about losing someone who's been only kind to you and good for your well-being than you would with someone who's been a crazy bastard in your life and caused you bloody hell. And yet that's the one you find it the hardest to get over in most cases, because they've had the most distorting and confusing effect on your sense of yourself. And so once they die, you start to purge that and you get in touch with that. That's the grieving process. But you're not going to grieve if you're hanging on to, you're not going to grieve properly if you're hanging on to the idea that they still exist. Whether they exist or not for them is not relevant to me or you. What's relevant to me or you is they don't exist for me. And now I can let that in me come to an end. So I just wanted to explain that. Well, what do you do? There is, how do we let that come to an end? We really have to understand that this is a perfectly healthy process. And we don't want to, we feel like because of social conditioning or whatever, I suppose, we think we should be so cold. This is not, I don't think this is being cold, really. This is being true to yourself, and being honest, that this person is not here anymore. Drop the story, drop the imaginings, and deal with the facts of life, which may feel really harsh and really hard, but you'd be surprised that if you can really face that fact by not mystifying it with some delusion or what you want it to be. Know that I got no control over my life. This is life taking its own direction. I didn't want him to die, but there's nothing I can do about her or him or whoever it is. So I don't have control in life. So what do I have? I am part of that life. I have to acknowledge the facts. This is the only intelligent response. I have to acknowledge what has happened, that I've lost them, that they're gone. And then what have I got? How does that feel? What does that leave me feeling? And that feeling is really where we heal, as we've talked about a lot. That feeling that will dissipate quite rapidly. Whereas if we hang on to the person and we emotionalize about them, it will really cause us prolonged misery, prolonging that sensation beyond its natural time frame. Yeah. So it has its own natural time frame too, healing. I mean, any healing process, it needs to do its own thing. And you don't know which way it's going to go, but people want to be certain. But this is just because we're thinking creatures. Yeah. But beneath that shallow thinking stuff, we are we are we're not certain of anything. Sorry, it's not so much there's no need to be certain of anything. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because you can be you only need to be certain of something because you think that you can control life and impose your will on it. But there's a lot of other people trying to do the same thing, and if those wills aren't the same, well, we're going to have problems, which we do. So
Just a
we're a
few.
part. Yeah, just a few. So we've got to go with it. Yeah. So, and how do you go with this? What I think you and I, you know, is part of what we try to educate people with. And it's not an intellectual education, is it? It's something that you have to sort of jump in the deep end with. But I feel that it's very, very important that people understand that they really have to get anchored in their body. Yeah, and not get lost in ideas and beliefs and concepts because we don't need them anyway. What am
And the
I
savior and the whole concept of the
go
savior,
on?
the, the concept of the external savior. I mean, it's so prevalent, and it's like because of that dissociation and you've separated yourself from yourself, the idea has
Yes.
been born that you need now someone to rescue you, that's the victim, from yourself.
Yeah.
and and then that's projected into with the filters, right? Like you were saying, be careful
Yep.
of how you're perceiving because you have control over
Yeah.
the filters to some degree, but
Yeah.
or not. Maybe you do, maybe you
Yeah.
don't. But regardless, however the filter is there, the filter is influencing you, and
Yes.
you
This
must
is it.
always have that awareness. And then if it's distorted, as we know it will be, then we have
Yep.
to buffer our distortions in order to stay in equanimity. Otherwise, you fly off the handle at every little insult. I mean, this is the
Oh,
world
I
we see
see.
too, right? You
Yes.
see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Otherwise, you're just reacting all the time. You
All
mean?
the time. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, this is very important. Okay.
Yeah, you can
Oh.
launch into that. And the
Oh,
projections,
really?
but
Okay.
projections and external savior was kind of where I was going, tying in with sort of filters, being aware of that, and how
This
what we've
is
been trained to do. Yeah, yeah,
this is it. This is our second conversation, and
yeah.
we're getting into the juice, aren't we? This is like, yeah,
It's
this is really
important.
cool.
It is cool, and and I just
Yeah.
wanted to say, like, I've been promoting the Undo app, and this is Matthew's baby here, and I
Oh
really
yeah.
encourage people to. I just want to plug it right now, and people go to
Okay.
undoapp.com because so one sec. So just go to the undoapp.com website, and I have a code yummy23 a month off. It's
Oh, you
worth
know that.
it's like
Good.
it's ridiculous. It's not even it's like it's genius. Okay, it's worth every
Yeah.
cent. It's not even expensive. It's the
Yeah.
fact that
No.
what it's doing is getting you, and so it's changed me, is what I'm saying, is just the awareness of it and the understanding and the training that it provides. You don't even need to use the app forever either. What's interesting is
No.
it just changes the way you think about yourself
Yeah.
and the way that you approach things as they come. And I'm not saying it's an easy journey into the self.
No.
We're not
It can't be.
promising any of that.
Mm.
But what I'm saying is it's so value filled because the after effect, as you purge that, as you cleanse that, as you release that, as you acknowledge that and accept it and go through all of this, you are transmuting, transforming, you are
Yeah.
allowing the changes that are going to come one way or another, but at least it can be an unfoldment or a
Yeah.
blossoming experience rather than adding more trauma to trauma
Yeah.
and losing the self. And no, and when you lose the self, then there's hopelessness, there's suicide, there's all the
Yeah. It's
places
really
we
tough.
don't want to be. Okay. And that's why, like, once I once I met you and once I understood this, I was like, yeah, this is for doing all these meditations and all these, I was doing Buddhism, like I was doing all the
Yes.
chanting, I was doing all the things to
Yeah.
get there, thinking I
Yeah.
had to be better and thinking I had to ascend and
Yeah.
thinking I had to be
Yeah.
right. Okay, so I
That's
just
the
want to say that to
spirituality.
people.
Thanks.
This is the work, but Matthew has laid it out for you. Like it's not
Yeah.
like back when you didn't have guidance, right? I mean,
Yeah.
who has a guru sitting there, able to teach them, and it'll walk
Yeah.
you through yourself, and it'll help you unblock. Later, we can talk about blockages too. I want to talk a bit
Sure.
about that
Will
later.
you
So
remember that?
I'll
Okay,
remember
good.
that, and you
So
go,
this,
yeah, with the other.
okay, go then. That's wonderful. And it's like, I don't feel in any way hesitant to agree with what you're saying, because I know why that came out of me in that way. And that was with, I mean, I've worked with, my work was always with people who had tried everything, whether it was work with people's bodies as an osteopath and deep tissue masseur, working with the mind-body connection and helping people connect up what's going on physically and psychologically and all that stuff, which I was pioneering many, many decades ago. But also as I went further and deeper into working with people and noticing people coming back with the similar symptoms or so-called problems in their body,
Mhm.
I had to go deeper, yeah, and I had to get them to go deeper, actually, yeah. And so this was a discovery. This is mostly in my 30s, and that going deeper meant that I was dealing with, I mean, I was basically working with. I had 45 clients a week every week. I was a busy, and that's a lot of time, a lot of energy. But I was full of energy, like.
Yeah.
I'm 63 now, I haven't got that sort of energy, but I had it then. I have a different energy now. But yeah.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, you were just saying that before, so good on you. Take it easy. But it's different. But no, the point was, what I did notice was that I have this. In fact, it was Adrian from the Principles podcast that recognized this in me, which often other people have to tell you before you realize it yourself. And he said, within a few minutes of listening to me talk with him, he said, your way of thinking is you think in patterns. I went, not in details. I went, shit, that's right, isn't it? That's why once I did the monk thing, I saw the pattern of the theme of religion was played out in spirituality and religions all over the world. It's
Did the
exactly the
same.
same
I
theme.
I did the
Yeah,
same thing. Yep.
you did the same thing. So
Yep.
once you see that pattern, you lose interest in all of it, because you
Yep.
see that it's a dead end uh, mystification of things that are understandable. Yeah. So or along with that, so that was really good. So I saw things in patterns, and seeing things in patterns has served me in many areas of life. But in my interest has been helping people in the way I have. So what I found is as I went through working with so many people, there was these fundamental things that basically everybody was missing. And it must, because I saw it over and over again for literally tens of thousands of people, it was like, holy shit, there it is again. People don't understand reaction and projection, which is on the thought level. People then don't understand feeling or sensation, which is below the thought level. People don't know how to feel, they only know how to emotionalize. Yeah. So people don't really know what feelings are for, what thoughts are for, and they get all separated out, through psychiatry and psychology and spirituality. They break these things up into insurmountable complexities, which don't help. They just complicate something so that the problem's complex. But the solution has to be bloody simple, because once you're already in that problem state, you're in trouble. So the fundamental thing is, as I went through, I've recognized a way. I've challenged, I've exposed what beliefs are. I've exposed the mind-body connection. I've exposed the nature of illness, the nature of pain. I've exposed one area in the mind myth, which a lot of people will struggle with. When I bring up the fact that the biggest con of the human species is the belief that there is such a thing as a mind. Now, I can just say that right now, and I'll have to unpack that, having said it. But this is something that people have just learnt in the way that we learn things generationally. because we've always heard people, our parents have said, everyone's always said, blah, 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 mind. We're always using the word mind, but no one seems to stop and go, well, what exactly are you talking about there? And when you really start to check on what exactly are you talking about there, I found you have to go deeper than that. And before you should ask the question, what is the mind? I will ask the question and find the answer to what is a body and how does the body function? Really, what is a body? And the only person that can find that out is ourselves, because unlike science, science cannot touch on this, because science is an outside-in approach. Yeah, science is an observational approach, and you can't understand a living being, you, the living being, from the outside in. Yeah, and you can't understand yourself through thought. In fact, I would go so far as to say that when you are thinking about yourself, you think you are thinking about yourself. But it's actually not possible to think about yourself and get it right. It's just your interpretation. It's just your mental version that you've learned mostly from other people who've brought you up, or people who indoctrinated you with their ideas about you. But in one way or another, these thoughts that you have about yourself are not actually capturing the essence of any aspect of you as it truly is. This has to be experiential. And I don't mean experiential as in manufactured experiences like you would get through some meditation technique. I mean the actual live experience, as we talked about before, about grief. I'm feeling grief. There's an opportunity to go into the depths of that experience and as a feeling in the body, and experience how the body deals with that. Yeah, how the body deals with it, how nature, which is the body, deals with that. And you start to get an appreciation for how you are mostly self-sufficient. I don't mean self-sufficient in the sense of don't need anybody. That's not correct. Yeah, we do need one another. We do, exist in the need for one another's, company and input on every level. We're not, no creature, nothing exists on its own. I can't exist without air. I can't exist without water. So really, in that way, I can't exist without a piece of fruit or a piece of, a food. And I eat that food, and that food then becomes a part of me as I digest it. So where do I begin and where do I end? When you really start breaking it down, you see how trivial it is for the thought process to try and say, I am a soul, or I am a spirit, or I am a this, or I am a that. This is just a concept. It's just if you can describe it, if you can mentally describe it, that's not it. Yeah, that's not it. Yeah. If you can mentally describe it, you are not capturing reality in the description. You are having a crack at talking about it, and you will not, because it's not possible to capture even the most basic reality of what does it feel like when you're itchy. Look at this, everybody listening to this, look at this simple thing. When I come back to the physical sensation of touch, that's where I know I'm itchy. And how do I know I'm itchy? I don't know I'm itchy through thought. Thought cannot know that I'm itchy. Thought only gets that information from the body in the condition of itching. So the information is an actual living, it's the lived experience, the living experience. This is what I'm trying to express to people. The living experience is itchy, warm, hot, cold, hungry, sad. These are things that are going on of their own volition all the time as a part of our own ongoing biological existence. Yeah. And thought can only recognize that secondhand. So the information that we have in an itch, or the information I have on my skin right now, if we all just stop still for a moment, what is your skin telling you? Right now, my skin is telling me that the temperature here is quite cool in the air. My skin and my tissue on my bum is telling me that this chair is a fairly hard chair to sit on for 2 hours or whatever. My senses are telling me there's some bird noises over there. My eyes are telling me that there's a light here, and everything is operating, and this is an ongoing information of facts. So if I can have facts, and like you said in the early part of this talk, the facts of our life today, because life in the world is changing all the time. If I can keep up with those facts, and to do that, I have to recognize the significance of my sensory nature, my sense organs, and my ability to sense, internally to sense what is like inside of me, sense or feel, and externally to receive all the information through all of my senses, and how that all funnels into my internal world again in my body and triggers off all sorts of responses inside my body in response to whatever's going on outside. And it's all happening automatically, and it's bloody smart. But it's not smart in the same way that thought is. And thought is not able to do anywhere near that. So I've got 500, 5 channels of information channeling all this information in. And in this way, I know my environment. Now, I want to slip in a really tricky thing here. I know that I'm hungry, or I know that I'm cold, or I know that I have pain. I know that because I can feel it. But what do I want to do with that? I want to argue with that. I want to say, well, why have I got that? Yeah. Or why is life like this? I know that I've got stress with my partner. Yeah. And I want to go, but why? Why have I got this? And prematurely, I want to fix it. Yeah. So it's almost like life is telling me factually, sensorially, it is telling me everything about me and my life all the time. But I argue with that because it's not the way I have been taught to want it to be. I want it really not the way we have been taught to want life to be. We think we want life to be this way, but most of the time we only want life the way we want it because we've been taught to want it that way, and we haven't actually figured out at all what it is we do want. And what we really want is what we need. Yeah, when the wanting and the needing comes together, that's what we really want. Because when we let that happen, which means what comes to me, the first contact with my existence at every second of my existence is sensory, is the physical body. Yeah. And the spiritualist or the psychologist or the intellectual in us, in all of us, wants to overthink life and get control and impose its will on it. And what I'm trying to say, when you look at the bigger picture of life, you're not going to narrow yourself down to I'm a soul, I'm not a body. You're not going to narrow yourself down to that and actually have anything real. You've just got another concept. And of course, when I was a monk, when I first became a monk, just to make it clear, the first thing, I was only 18 years old and I was a naturalist without knowing it. I was just living in the forest, not as a hippie, but I was well, actually I was, but back then, but not as a feral, but I was living well. Like I was a shearer and horse breaker and these sort of things. So I was a young, robust sort of guy. I had never been introduced to religion, never been introduced to spirituality, none of that. But all that is based on was already happening inside of me because I was a highly sensitized animal. Yeah, I was very sensitive. And I was also very angry at times because I knew that people were so cruel and so horrible to one another, in the way they thought about each other. I didn't like that, even just the way they thought about each other. That's affecting people, and because I couldn't understand why they did it. I actually believed that they were doing it deliberately because I wouldn't do it. Yeah. And I thought I'm not saying I was a saint. I could be a real asshole just like anybody else. But what I'm saying is, when your anger gets over you. But that's why part of the reason I went off to become a monk, because I think I'm going to have to go and meditate because I've got to figure out what this anger's about. And it was just simply about not understanding that people don't mean to do what they're doing. They don't even know they're doing it because we don't actually have control in our life. We're controlled by aspects of our life that have been a problem along the way. Just as one example. So I wanted to bring that in for listeners is that the first thing was the body. The body is very important. And it's very important not to go it's very important not to go searching like I did. I went off and became a monk. It's very important not to do that, because you start to search outside of yourself, which is something you brought up before and really triggered me, really brought up. And I sat down I went to my first meditation course. And the guy sat in front of me, the other monk sat in front of me, and it was a yogic tradition. So, and he said to me, I remember he said, "You are not a body, you are a soul." Yeah, and so you are an eternal soul. You live forever, blah, blah, blah. All the regular nonsense that goes with it, as if the body is something that doesn't live forever. This is anyways, we're looking, I won't go into that right now, but the point being is that was, I took that on and swallowed that idea. And I used the technique that they were using to create this experience. In fact, it's a form of self-hypnosis that was used on me in my very first session with that monk. And he was able to get me to experience myself as a point of light, completely disassociated from my body. And then I went on to do that to other people when I became a monk.
I see a lot of this happening. Like on
freaking
big
brainwashing.
channels, I'm seeing this happen on mass.
Do you? Okay.
Oh yeah.
This is happening en masse. And these are thought-induced experiences, just like enlightenment really is ultimately, a thought-induced experience. You've got a whole lot of ideas about what it is, and you think the thoughts that take you down that track until you're so disassociated from the whole picture of you, and you're only experiencing the part of you that you've chose. So this is a disassociation. Yeah. So my point was that's where it began, and that's where the harm first began for me, was when I became a monk. And I loved it. I enjoyed it because it gave you such an escape. Yeah. When you could even escape your own body, but it's not in the way that people think. And I'm not going to go down that track. What I want to say is that this whole idea that there is, okay, I'll put it this way. The materialist will look at life in one way, from the point of view of the materialist. Yeah. So we're just flesh and blood and bones, and that's it, let's say. Yeah. And the spiritualist will say, look at it from the spiritualist point of view. They're still looking at life and say, no, but we are an energetic being and blah, 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 blah. There's auras and all sorts of shit going on. But really, these two people are both the same thing and looking at the same thing, just through different perceptions. So the spiritualist hasn't got it right. The religious person hasn't got it right. The materialist hasn't got it right. They've all got it right in a sense. Yeah. But my point is, what the hell does it matter when it's all bullshit anyway? Because
that's my point all the time. I'm like, why? Is this like,
what does it matter?
If you want to write comic books and play in fantasies, and like, then just accept you're doing that. Then go, yes, I'm going to do cosplay and pretend I'm something else right now, to the extreme even. But at least go, I'm doing that because I'm pretending. Don't do that because you think that's reality. You know what I mean? There's a big distinction there between play pretend and projecting play pretend as reality. Very different. Yeah.
Wow. And it's so, and people hearing that, it's very powerful, I think, and very challenging too, what you're saying, because some people might go, well, I'd like to, right now, I might go, well, shit, I want to stop pretending. Yeah. So don't think that knowing what the body is or isn't is important. You are that. Yeah. And you'll come to understand yourself from the inside out. And when you really understand how you function as a body, as a result of not actually as a result of going through your own healing process, mostly, and which we'll unpack a bit more. But when people think that I'm a materialist because I talk like that, I'm not a materialist, and I'm not a spiritualist, and I'm not a religious person. Yeah, I have no interest in any of my opinions about anything from this perspective, that whatever it is I am living as that. Yeah. And however I want to describe it is completely irrelevant. Yeah. Because I am what I am, and that person over there is what they are. We're all the same in that sense. We're all moving in the same direction. But the spiritualist or religious person thinks that, but if you take on this path, you're going to become a special person, a more enlightened person, or this person or that person.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very misleading, because then people start to think, well, what?
It separates.
It's separating.
Yeah.
It's separating. Yeah.
We should
And
put
people
that little
start.
Popeye thing in here, but I am what I am and I am what I am. I think we'll just
All right, do it.
put a little
Yeah.
Popeye segment in here. Sorry,
You
this is
hit the
where my
word there.
brain goes.
No,
I
that's
gotta
good.
always, the way that my being is that, I need to, I feel like if we deliver heavy concepts and we deliver deep things and we
Oh, you
deliver
want to
kind
lighten
of
them up.
smack stuff. You know what I
Good.
mean?
And you're
And we have
very
to
good
be,
at that.
yes. And so we do that, but then we got to soothe with some comedy.
We do.
It's going to be
Okay.
okay,
Make
like
sure you
that.
do it. Yeah, good. I
Yeah.
know you're very good at that. So it's a good balance you bring into me.
Yeah. Because it's
Yeah. So
supposed to be lighthearted ultimately.
of course, and we can make it really heavy. Yeah. But
Mm.
life can be heavy when it's tough, but knowing that it's not wrong when it's tough, it's just what you have to, and how to go through that is why I put that app together to start with, but also the retreats that we run, which are taking people a lot deeper again if they're there in person. But this is not out of a dependency. Oh, that's what I want to say. I'm not giving people what to think. Yeah, I'm not. So as you said, you went through a process and it changed your thinking. I think you'll probably agree with me. I'm going to jump in and take a stab at this. Is that it's not that I was replacing the old thoughts through you doing the app,
It
but
was releasing them.
it releases those old thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to release those old thoughts, because if I can expose how, for example, a person is believing about themselves and how that comes about, and for them to see the bullshit of a belief, but the power of a belief on them as well. And they
Mm-hmm.
see that, the
Yeah,
seeing of that is a type of waking up. Yeah. And
totally.
that can wake you up, if you like, from the thoughts that you're enslaving yourself to and being enslaved to, but not to replace them with any more other thoughts. I'm not interested in indoctrinating over the top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is where we go wrong. Because the reason I don't want to do that is because the individual is highly intelligent themselves. And anybody that I've worked with, they've usually come to me less intelligent, primarily because of trauma, primarily because of harm and indoctrination. But as that trauma heals and as that indoctrination drops away, they become as intelligent as we all are meant to be. Yeah, really, we are all supposed to be geniuses. I believe. Yeah, there's nothing that is beyond me in this moment to understand at a sensory level. Yeah, and therefore, from that sensory level, to find the correct response from within my own body being, to find the correct and sensitized response that is ultimately going to be the best response or adequate response for that situation. Yeah. And so that's what I'm trying to describe as a form of genius. It's not an intellectual thing at all. It's as you were saying before, like an ongoing response to life now, rather than a collection of thousands of years of tradition that is so bogged down in irrelevance, and it simply does not help anybody. Yeah. Because it's just repetition anyway, just stuck in the past, and there's no newness. Yeah. So this is where I want to encourage people to, that in this, you're going to find what it is to be yourself, not, how to become a Christian, not how to become a spiritualist, not how to become a Buddhist, but how to become, not become, how to be you. Yeah. And get that crap out of the way. And the healing process, as you already know, it is something that some people don't really realize, but I don't think probably very few people do. I think you would. the most significant way to increase your intelligence is to heal your pain, because of your pain, limits the way you view life. Your traumas distort your sense of your view of yourself and your view of life around you. So you can have a completely distorted and stuck up view of yourself and life, all because of the hurt and the pain that's inside of you. So of course, what's going to happen as that heals is you're going to see yourself without that indoctrination, without that pain. And this is an awakening to you. Yeah. And it's fun. It makes life extremely enjoyable because you're not putting pressure on yourself to try and become something you're not. You're I'm trying to get people away, and anybody I think who understands what you're understanding as well. We're just trying to get people away to find their own way, but at the same time, like any friend or any companion, be there to support them when they need it, because sometimes these
Hmm.
traumas can be, you need someone to help you through them because they're so full
Oh
on.
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, there should be. I mean, ultimately, or the society that has been engineered around us feeds the separation of us continually, right?
absolutely.
And that has to change,
Oh,
as we all know, and that many of us are working on in a myriad of ways. And my daily focus is that how can I bring more of that togetherness? And interestingly enough, I'm very hermity.
yeah,
So I
you
have
need it,
to
but
balance my hermit side with my, outward expression side within my involvement in communities and things. And which
ah,
these are my own challenges, while also having to be introspective so much. Then the hermit provides that for me, where I can be inside myself for long stretches of time as much as I can, and then balance things with the business so that I can have that
yes,
space to process and to all these things. And especially with all the changes I've been going through personally, we have to honor those stages of life that
oh,
become that
have to.
start to metamorphose you, because there's stability for a little while, but then, I mean, there's always this constant change, but then there's bigger changes, the change points that come. And that's when you can be more vulnerable. That's when you can see, all the work that you've done, where it's come to fruit or not, come to bear fruit or not, when you're challenged another layer. And it's like it tests you to see where you're at, and it's not meant to be a punishment. And I think a lot of us, because we're punished as children, that when we do something wrong, or when the feedback, there's a negative feedback, it's a punishment energy. And so we self punish, like we've
Yeah,
done something wrong, bad, and that's the inner child damage stuff too,
yeah,
right? It's like
yeah,
we're stunted emotionally at wherever that trauma point happened, or the most trauma points happened in our childhood. And you can sort of see where someone's emotional development, like what age they're operating at in their bodies, right, based
yeah,
on
yeah,
whatever that snapshot kind of really hit for them. And so
yeah.
getting in and intimate with that is integrative. And also energy releasing, like you were saying, that genius is that. And that's why, I mean, the undo app, you're undoing those
Yeah.
layers, and you have more energy that is freed up. And when that
Mm.
happens, you can, focus again on other things. And so it's like, I always feel like life, for at least for me, has been this big deep in breath and then another out breath. And like my life always pulses like this. And because I'm a pattern recognizer as well, and I notice when
Yep.
my life behaves in this way. And I'm not going to project that everybody else's does, but I know that this is how my life does and my patterns. And so you get to honor and recognize your own patterns. And as you learn and as you unlearn,
Yes,
mostly it's
as
an
you
unlearning. It's
mostly
mostly,
unlearning, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and actually, one of my first realizations of unlearning was after naturopathic college, because I went, there was so much conditioning there that is just simply not true. Now I have
Okay.
to now I have to actually just get that out of me. Like,
Ah,
this is not
yeah.
accurate, but it's in me. And I'm trained. It's a training program to engage a certain way with your client.
Yeah.
And it was a whole and it was as if that, because I wholeheartedly went, oh gosh, oh dear, there's so much of this that is not right. it was interesting energetically that the way my life unfolded to not even where they didn't want to license me, where I was having negative interactions with the naturopathic board, and they were
Yep.
attacking and coming at me hard, and because I was whistleblowing and calling them out on codex, and it was a big drama back then, of course, but I
Yes.
didn't even know. I
Of
was just
course.
being natural. I was honestly,
Yeah.
I was just being myself with overlays of like new age concepts I still had with
Yeah.
me. Like there were a
Sure.
lot of those overlays. So those were my filters coming out with how I was seeing the world. Um, and then after this whole experience, I realized, well, that's par for the course because I was already realizing that this wasn't the path. I mean, this wasn't truth, and it would change me in a way that wasn't natural. And my
Yeah.
body rejected it even ahead of
Yeah.
time, the
Yeah.
way that I behaved all the way through. That's why it's almost like there's no mistakes.
Yeah.
This is all the patterning and the way that we unfold our lives based on our responses and our filters. And it's all about empowerment. I mean, really, ultimately, we're really trying to put the power back inside of people. But that can be
Absolutely.
scary. That
Mm.
can be really scary for people, like to have responsibility to, right? That inner child again will feel frightened if that's not addressed, right? When more like
Yeah.
responsibility comes on, like a little, I can't cope with that individual. Like, so what would you say for that type of person, which we see a lot of? They're very fragile, they're easily triggered, they're very surface emotions, a lot of drama in their
Mm.
lives, using maybe a lot of substances to manage things, feel a lot of projection or offering a lot of projections,
Mm.
expecting maybe other people to tiptoe or be on eggshells a little bit around them,
Yeah.
all those kinds of things. What's your view on what's going on there with this scenario that we see a
Okay.
lot of?
Well, there's a little bit of guesswork exactly the scenario you're talking about, but it's fine. I can just jump in anyway. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
like, yeah, no problem. Because it's like this, it's a broad area.
There's a lot, always
There's
going
a
to be a
lot there,
lot, and we're only and
of
I know
course.
we're going to look back and go, oh yeah, and this too, and then that
Yeah,
too,
that's all right. We'll do
but
it
these
again.
are
That's
just
all.
big, yeah, these
Yeah.
are
Big
big,
questions. Yeah.
ideas. So yeah.
So here we have a big problem that most people are suffering from, I would say, and even if they're not telling their closest friends, and there's so many things, like you've had the injection, the what is it, COVID injection that a lot of people were
Yeah.
unfortunately convinced to go with. So these people have got a level of interference, but I think there's some pretty good naturopaths out there and different people working out ways to detox that shit out of their system, which is good. I avoided that because I could see through that. So I literally stayed in a country where that wasn't being imposed because Australia at the time was a prison. And So I just avoid those things because I have a sense of something not being right. And almost without even necessarily knowing that that's what I'm sensing, but I have a feel of what I want to do. And that guides me before I really understand why or what I'm doing sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. So that's all right for me. And that's what I would call the result of being in a healthy enough state to and have enough experience with your body healing itself and resolving problems that you would be frightened of having inside of you, resolving feelings that you would be frightened of, resolving thought process that you would be frightened of, resolving physical illnesses that you would be frightened of. And once you allow yourself to go through any physical or psychological healing process, you get a little bit less fear and a little bit more confidence each time. A little bit more confidence in the process of healing, that the body is designed to detox, the body is designed to heal itself of pretty much everything, apart from perhaps some really, sometimes you're going to need some intervention. But most of the time, the intervention is unnecessary. Yeah. And so going through your own healing process, you're going to need a bit of guidance to get the courage with that. All that really, really, really means, all that really means at essence is that when you feel frightened or disturbed, when you feel upset with people, or you're in reaction to the world around you, or you're wanting to take substances to change the way you feel, or drugs to change the way you feel, you are not actually staying with the disturbance in yourself, and you are in a state rejecting a part of yourself that is already in tremendous pain. So it's almost like that part of ourselves that's in tremendous pain is generally one or two traumas I've found throughout my life experiences, generally one or two really serious traumas that we've lost sight of, that pretty much drive a barrage, a multitude of physical and psychological problems throughout our life. So the value of going to the core, getting to the core of what is driving me day by day is massive, because this has the potential, not only the very real potential, not the maybe potential, but to heal trauma from your body at the felt sensational level, when you feel the worst inside of you. To heal that there means that it no longer has to manifest as a barrage of other problems because of the imbalance that's in your body and the massive stress that's in your body. And I'd say one of the major stresses that people have on the body are where you have complete disassociation. Most people have it. Yeah, I thought most people have it. And the reason we have it is it all begins when we're very young, and even if we're not traumatized, even if we're not hurt, even if we're brought up by nice parents, we are taught to think. And I know this sounds far out, but we are taught to think. But ironically, we are taught to think about ourselves. And therefore, what people in the spiritualist community might call self-consciousness develops. You become self-conscious, whereas as a baby, as a child, you're not really self-conscious at all. Yeah, you know what's going on, but you don't know it in the sense of always bringing it back to me being the center of the universe. You know, you're not obsessive with yourself because you're not thinking about yourself. And why thinking about yourself has a very bad effect is because the more you grow up, once you learn to think, you're told what to think and how to think. Yeah. And so that thinking gets further and further removed from the way you actually are. And very few people ever measure up to what they're taught to think they're supposed to be. And so this battle between two parts of us is what we live in this duality, in this split between mind, so-called mind, and body, or between our thinking process and our body. And understand what I'm saying here is we always feel. We were born feeling, we're born sensing, we're born with our senses, we're born incredibly intelligent on that animal level, which is not a low level, it's a very high level. It's the highest level, yeah? It's the body's intelligence. But we have to be taught to think, even after thousands, millions of years, what have been. No one's been born thinking. We all still have to be taught to think because it's not a natural thing. Yeah. Whereas every person on the planet, no matter what language they were taught to think, they all feel in the same language. Our natural state, our natural animal state, is essentially where we are the same as each other. And this is where we divide off and split is where we come up with ideas about ourselves and start to separate into communities and belief systems and so forth. And it divides us. And the more we divide, the more, interestingly, the less empathy and understanding we have of one another. And therefore, the less we understand one another, the more we fear one another. So the more aggressive we become towards one another, and so on it builds. Yeah. So bringing it back to what we end up with is a human being after, a number of years of being a human being. You have a human being that has the right feelings. The feelings are fine. What we're feeling is okay. But the interaction between our thinking and our feelings, between the way we really are and the way we are brought up or convinced that we're supposed to be, this is not a small conflict. This is like a never-ending conflict. And you see it really clearly now, with each generation becoming more and more homogenized. Yeah. And it's like there's good things happening there as well, not just bad things, but people are really, really confused about how to relate to one another because they're trying to relate as human beings through a thought process. So they're taught how to behave, like, oh, I don't know, one of the girls that works for me might say, oh, I can't ring. The guy asked me out. Oh, yeah, well, why don't you just ring him? So, oh, no, we just text. Yeah. And it's like, okay, let's see how that goes. So there's no communication, there's absolute confusion, and it ends up fizzling out, for example. And then they feel, and it's like a total disconnect. I mean, that's obvious that we all see that, but this disconnection is why? It's because we are, in a sense, frightened of coming into contact with the feelings of ourselves that we ourselves have learnt to become uncomfortable with, simply because we're not, those feelings and those conditions are not living up to the ideals that our parents and our culture has taught us we should do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this massive separation between these ideas about what we should be, to be a good person, which separate us from, firstly, from what we actually are, to the point that we sort of say, I don't know what I am, which is actually crazy when you think of it. But anyway, we'll go on to that. But then you become so distressed with yourself, and then add some harm into that, throw some drugs into that, throw some abuse into that, throw some fear and interrogation into that, some bullying of the system as it gets more violent towards its people. And people becoming more and more unstable, more and more frightened, or poor, or poverty, all sorts of things. Essentially, what are we frightened of? We're frightened of ourselves, mostly. We're frightened of how it is to be me. How am I going to feel if this person talks to me that way? How am I going to feel if that person doesn't talk to me this way? How am I going to feel if this person knows this about me, or those people know that about me? I'm going to feel terrified, horrified. I'm going to absolutely tear myself apart. This is only one little thing I'm bringing up here. So what happens when that person talks to me in a certain way? And I realize now why I'm going down this track, because one of the younger women who work for me says this would be a really good topic. And that is how people are so overly sensitive about what we say. Yeah, that you can't actually speak honestly, because everybody is so fragile and so timid, or so precious about what's being said, and whatever. And so become incredibly defensive, to the point where people are being, without them realizing, they're being herded into an indoctrination where nobody is allowed to speak out and say anything that's going to upset anyone. And if we don't get upset, then we're just going to numb. If we don't get upset, we are not going to evolve. We're not going to get out of this. Disturbance is development. Yeah, I would have to say that disturbance is development. Any country that's been through a lot of disturbance, they end up with more intelligence, more resilience, stronger, more equipped human beings to deal with life than a group of human beings who've grown up in a comfort zone where there's a lot of wealth or whatever. I'm generalizing, but this is,
there's
what I've seen.
There's to a point.
To a point, exactly. Yeah, and then there's a point where you
is
just
a whole other thing, but
like annihilation
it's like the stress factor. Yeah, the stress
factor only.
Yeah, that little
there's a
pressure.
Point, yeah. If you take any human being beyond that stress factor into pure abuse, then you'll destroy them, because we are very fragile creatures, but we're not as fragile as we think. So what happens when what is driving us crazy is our projections. Yeah. So we don't see a person, you know about this, but one of the first chapters in the app of learning about reactions, that my thoughts about other people, let's say as simple as this, I'm driving down the road and I see someone drive in a certain way, and I go, oh, look at that dickhead there. And then I see the girl dressed in tight jeans, but she's really fat. Yeah. And I'll go, oh, what does she think? And so these little sort of things that people think about other people almost all the time that are just sort of like nasty. And I'm not saying we're nasty for doing it, but they are projections out of our own insecurities, yeah, out of our own not feeling a real sense of ourself, not feeling our own presence. And in fact, if we could feel our own presence, we would feel that insecurity is there, and we feel the need to criticize and condemn other people on a regular basis, or in other words, just react. But why are we reacting? What is a reaction? It's when something happening in life causes us to come into contact with something inside of ourselves. Let's say I don't feel like I'm pretty enough, or I don't feel like I'm beautiful enough, or handsome enough, or whatever the word is being, that's probably an old-fashioned word. I don't feel like I'm gorgeous enough, or whatever. Yeah.
Or
And
whatever it
therefore,
is. It could be like,
well,
vivacious, or
yeah,
whatever the judgment
muscular,
is, the
whatever the
comparison. Yeah,
judgment
yeah,
is, there's
yeah.
that judgment on myself I've been taught to do by being brought up in a society that is indoctrinated with the massive con and the biggest con of society. And the most destructive con of society is that you are insufficient as you are and you need to improve. This is absolute bullshit. It's not grounded in any reality at all. But teaching a person to think that way about themselves eventuates in them being so screwed up by what they've done to themselves with that thinking, yeah, that they honestly end up in that state where they don't feel good enough at all. So what do? You get to that point, you feel terrible, everything around you triggers you, upsets you. You want to find a group of people that you feel alike and feel safe in, but you end up, any one of us will do this, when we have some sort of underlying unresolved issue, anytime anything in the world outside of us causes us to get in touch with that issue or belief that we have an attachment to, we will react. Like something you said to me today, not on the phone, but not on the podcast, something to do with which brought up the thing that why would people ever be upset with anything that I challenge? Why would anybody be upset with me challenging their belief system or a belief that they have? Because a belief is not knowing. A belief is a false knowing. So it's an incredibly insecure state, actually. To believe in something is always going to also have an element of disbelief, of uncertainty. Yeah. So because it's not grounded in reality. It's just someone's taught you something, you believe it. So when a belief is challenged, it's not being challenged to criticize the person, but the person will feel as though they are being criticized because they end up identifying with that belief. Yeah, they identify with a structured way of thinking, a religion or a concept, and they identify with it in order to get some sense of themselves that fits in somewhere. Yeah. So that they find themselves in an idea. And identifying with ideas is exactly how we lose ourselves into an idea. And we lose the sense of ourselves into thoughts about ourselves and about life, which we don't really understand. We just choose to believe them because all our friends believe it or whatever. Now, if that belief is challenged, that person will feel that they personally are challenged. Yeah. So next time anybody listening to this podcast, next time you are being challenged and you recognize, hang on, this is my belief that's being challenged, my opinion that's being challenged here. Why am I so upset about it being challenged? Is because why am I so defensive of this? It's because that's what I use to get some sense of security in myself. That's my stability. And if you take that away, I'm lost. That's just one way of looking at it. So yes, you will feel challenged, but it's very important to really listen to where people are coming from. And that means don't just listen to the words that I say or certain people say when they're challenging your beliefs. What if they're challenging your beliefs for your benefit? Yeah, not because they want to rule you and fill you up with their own beliefs, not because they want to overcome you, not because they want to be your guru or some other monster like that in your life, but simply because they they can see that there's something wrong with this belief, and if you hang on to that belief, you're going to be far worse off than getting rid of it, even if you don't have another one to replace it with. So my point is, rather than being reactive, notice the reaction of the feeling that it brings up for you when someone challenges your idea, your opinion, your belief, your whatever, your dress. When someone challenges that, you will feel something inside. Yeah, and if you do feel something inside, it shows that behind that dress, that idea, that belief system is a pain or an insecurity that is the reality of you. So so that's what you're being put in touch with. That's your pain. Now, why is that a good thing? Your reaction is you getting in touch with things inside of yourself that you don't even know are there sometimes, and you therefore don't actually know that these are the things that are driving you in life to become destructive in yourself and with yourself and in life in general, and have a shit life. And if someone has an effect of putting you in touch with that or stirring that in you, this is an opportunity at that moment. Now, how do you take the opportunity is come back to the feeling of that distress, wherever you feel, where the reaction begins. It doesn't begin as you screaming at them. It begins as you feeling something of distress inside of you. And if you can just feel that distress, don't worry about the person who's triggered your reaction. That's not so important. I remember this really helped me when I was about 30 or 25 or something around that age. And I realized this thing about reactions. And that day on, it was about I'm not kidding you, it was about a 10-year period. It was like I was just obsessed with not reacting. And it was the best time of my life because everybody that pissed me off or upset me was like, give me more, bring it on, because you're showing me more about myself that I don't know about. So that it was like, what is this telling me about me? What is this? How can this person, what is this person doing that could upset me? There must be something really serious here. So it was always, my interest wasn't in them being mean to me and rejecting that. My interest was my reaction to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was interested in. And I think that gave me the foundation of the greatest freedom that has continued throughout my life, to be able to deal with and cope with life. And this is why people have a very hard time coping with life, because they don't understand that out of their reactions, rather than being with that reaction and feeling that as a sensation in their own body until it dissipates, and it will, and make this your meditation. Not to think about, but just it's like an active meditation. You're out in the world, someone pisses you off. What do you feel? Boom, there's your meditation. You've just got in touch with something that a moment ago was completely unconscious to you, or subconscious to you, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it was not known to you as a part of you. Now you're known. Now it's known to you as a part of you. So feeling that, you will get the distress that's in that will dissipate if you feel
Now,
it
what
in your
about
body.
the mind tapes? So we get triggered, and then the tapes start rolling, and you start to mull on what happened. Like you're, "Meh, meh, 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 how could they do that to me?" And say, "Da, da, ba, da, ba, da, ba, da, ba, da." Now you're trying to, what do you do with that as you're trying to find the sensation, right? Because this is where people are habituated to do
Yeah.
this and to ruminate and to criticize behind the scenes, to condemn, condemn someone in their
Yeah.
minds, right? Okay, and we're trying to bring their awareness that this is part of their triggers, but there's an underlying sensation that you're after. But if this is going so wild, how do you now, what's the strategy there
Yeah, this is a very
to
good
get to
question,
that?
isn't it? Keep
Mm.
going. And I need questions like this to to bring me down to a level at which, not a level, but to really connect properly with the struggles of people sometimes,
Mhm.
Um,
I'm a very
one
practical
thing,
person. I'm very practical, and I
you've got
sense
to
you are
be,
too, or you wouldn't have made an app.
you've got to
So
be practical.
you have to be.
It's got to be practical, and it's got to be applicable, and it's got to work.
That's right.
Otherwise, basically, it's flawed. It's bullshit. Yeah.
That's right.
So yeah. So, and I know you think that way too, because I see the work you do.
Yeah.
Okay. So primarily, what you've got there is you're thinking, how do I come back to that? How do I get in touch with that feeling? So now, for everybody who's listening, when you are reacting, your reaction in your thinking is loaded with feelings, right? Your thinking is loaded with feelings. So, in a sense, your feelings and your thinking at that moment are not actually in two different separations. They're not separate. Yeah. So, don't worry about the reaction. Yeah. Don't worry about trying to control. Never try and control your thinking. Yeah. Why? Because if you're trying to control your thinking, this is a reaction to that thinking. So if you're angry with someone and then you condemn yourself for being angry with someone, then you are, in a sense, angry with yourself for being angry with someone. So you've basically duplicated your reaction. You've duplicated your anger. You're going to increase your anger if you in any way try to stop being the way you are. Yeah. So if we're not going to try to stop being the way we are, what we need to do is be fully the way we are. So let the thinking go on. Let the thinking go on, yeah? But really feel the effect that it's having in your body, wherever it's having that effect in your body. Really feel the effect that it's having in your body. Really feel the effect that your reacting is having on you. And I think this is very important because at first it won't do much. Yeah. But keep doing it. And as you gradually, you will resensitize, not just to the fact that you're reacting, but you're going to resensitize to the reality that you are having a terrible effect on yourself. Yeah. And when you start to feel, once you start to feel the effect you are having on yourself, things will begin to change. Yeah. So starting off, you're going to be struggling a little bit. Yeah, for sure. But this is where I'd say also really study the first or second chapter of the app on reactions. Really study that. It's very important. And in studying that, this will help you. Don't just, the reason it will help you a lot more is because you've heard me say something right now, but what you will get from studying the app is you'll have something there to really take in. Yeah, it's not a small thing, and it's incredibly valuable because this is what's going to bring about a change in how you deal with yourself. Yeah, and that's the first person that's going to get the benefit is going to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a really important one, really, is that, and at this point, keeping it, I can only see keeping it simple as being important. And that is just what I've said, which is don't try and control your reaction, but more feel how it feels to be in a state of reaction. Yeah. And at first, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a real struggle. But that's okay. You're allowed to
And by the
struggle.
way, it's a different struggle. I don't know if you know about the human design system, but I highly recommend people look into the human design system just for the sheer amount of information it can give you on just a part of you, how you emotionally respond to things. For example, the way my body is, I have a splenic reaction, emotional. So I have an emotional wave that comes. So say information comes, it filters through my emotions first. My emotions then come to the surface. Could be great, like I'm really excited about a project, for example. Somebody says something to me and I'm elated. I love the idea. This is wonderful. This is, oh, my excitement, oh, yes, baby, let's do it. I'm all in. I,
Yep.
I'm there. And then I sleep on it or time elapses. And then the wave comes this way and it tells me, oh, you didn't really think about that. Or, the sobering aspects come in. And so for someone, I've learned for myself, again, another pattern, and this just confirmed the pattern, that I need to wait for my emotional wave to settle out before I can make decisions. And not everybody has that. So
Okay.
there are people, there
Okay.
are in the moment
Cool.
feelers where, like my daughter, she doesn't have that. It's
Yeah.
all in one for her, and
Okay.
she can be very accurate in the moment and be very sober and mindful in the moment, where I have to wait, and there was a bit of a delay, and so like this is guiding you toward you, and
Yeah.
learning
Uniquely
new,
you.
yes, uniquely you,
Mm.
and when you, and it's not a selfish thing. This is what people,
No.
this is like the opposite of selfish,
Yep.
because when you are able
It,
to, for your joy is going to be infectious, for one, the only true infection, and like your life, your
just
life
got.
you got that, yeah.
Yeah.
Your life alters, in considerable ways, which will have ripple effects to others, and it's just the benefits will continue, and it's not just for you, because there is no just ultimately you, is there?
No, there's
That's
not. And
another
this is,
that's another thing.
it's not just you. No,
Yeah,
we're
right.
integrated. We're an integrated organism, really. And I don't mean that in a mythical sense at all. It's
No, no,
very,
not at
it's
all.
very, it's very
And it's
real.
very
Yeah.
real. Like it's very real. I really feel that the distortions have been getting layers of distortions upon them, because people are trying to come up with concepts to explain away everything. And and this is not, this is the, I thought this was one of the layer typographies of, scripture, some scriptures, right, as describing the body, describing things of nature, right? Well, when Adam and Eve, the story of eating from the tree of knowledge and they
Yep.
fall, well, this is the allegory of you stuck in your head. I mean, and getting up all in these fantasies, and
Okay.
of course
Yeah.
you're gonna be tempted, and of course you're going to go through this process, right, which is part of life. But if you're aware, you come through the ego, and you then have the, and it's not even self-awareness. We talked about self-awareness not last time, didn't we? It's not really like,
Uh,
because that was like a
Not really.
divorcing of
Yeah.
the self. Remember we were talking about
Yeah.
like the second
Exactly.
attention and you
We're talking
watching the
about,
self, and yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
exactly. Yeah.
it's
We were
different than that.
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very important. What you're saying is very important. The one thing I probably
Maybe
just,
my language
just in
wasn't,
case.
yeah.
No, no, the language. I listen through language.
Oh, good.
They're
Okay.
just words. Oh shit, yeah, no, no, but no, no. It's such an important thing, this, for people to. We are so indoctrinated with the possibility of some way of behaving or some way of being is just not being okay, and it's the belief that we're not okay in a certain way of being is backed up by the way it makes us feel, because we feel like shit. Yeah. And then we react to feeling like shit, which backs it up again. Yeah. So we're sort of like, we're indoctrinated into a cycle of yeah, see, I'm not, this is not good enough. It's not okay. And we're brainwashed into believing that life is about the happy, joy feelings if you're a enlightened or really special person, and all the other crap just belongs to the losers. And it's just not true. It's you're the way, the condition you're in will always be different, and it's outside of your control. It's the problem is not our condition, actually. The problem is our biases and our ignorance that causes us to react to those conditions and judge them as wrong when they never are. I think you said something before, there's never any mistakes. And this means that whatever condition you're in today is whatever condition, mentally or psychologically, physically, whatever condition you're in that condition for a reason which you may have forgotten all about. Yeah, but you're not in that condition for no reason at all. Yeah, if you're in a sick condition on any level, a difficult condition, or your life is difficult, trouble with relationships, there will be something in your life experience that got cut off at a certain point, and you weren't unable to finish a process. And that process will still be, in a sense, needing to reactivate and start healing again. And how will you know that you've got this sort of thing inside of you? It's actually more simple than you would think. It's because deep inside yourself, when you're quiet and alone, in your guts or in your stomach or in your chest or in your throat, you feel disturbance for no known reason. Yeah, you'll feel disturbed for no known reason. So this is the beginning. This is what you do know. You do know you're disturbed and you don't like that disturbance. And so that is the beginning of each healing process, meaning, or the re-beginning, the reawakening, to finish off a healing process that got chopped off short because it was overwhelming, it was too much, whatever it was. And I'm not even talking about disassociated traumas. I'm just talking about life is full on, and you just run out of room,
Yeah,
to keep
and then
up
there's
with.
menopause. And you're
And
like,
then, yeah. So
why do I feel
exactly,
this free-floating anxiety all day long?
all the time.
All
So
the
this
time.
is so important. I'm glad you brought that up. For anybody to think that there's something wrong with that is going to escalate their problem. But to accept that, even though you don't like it because it's hard going, yeah. But as you go through that, you will over time prove to yourself that it was as you heal it, you'll prove to yourself that, oh yes, this is a healing process, and I am resolving this by not fighting it, but by not resisting it, but by becoming involved in it, not mentally, not emotionally, but simply as a physical distress in my body. And that physical distress in your body is memory. Yeah, it's unfinished memory. And so the only reason I wanted to say this, I know you know all about this, Amanda, but I just wanted to say this because we've got an audience listening. I just want to say this because it's going to take a lot for people to get this, because they're so indoctrinated into how we should be and how we shouldn't be. And what I said in the early part of this podcast is we don't have a choice of how we are or how we aren't. And that is not how you define yourself as a good or bad, elevated or degraded or whatever person. It doesn't define you because you are unhealthy or you are healthy. It is just what the condition you are in. I know the religious people like to say it's your karma. I'm just going to say that is total bullshit. It's got nothing to do with that. Yeah, it's simply the only reason you are the way you are today is because of what you have been through in this life. Yeah, that's why you are the way you are today. You've been through shit that you haven't resolved, and that's all you've got to resolve. You've only got what's going on for you here, patterns in your body right now that you can actually tangibly feel as a distress in your body. You may know nothing more about it than that, but the more you just let yourself be with that distress from time to time, or when it's there, as you said, menopause, and you've got this constant anxiety, then that anxiety has to be felt until you actually find it breaks down your bias, misinterpretation, criticism, and judgment of it. And this completely changes your experience of that anxiety, not to something you maybe enjoy, but it changes it from something you suffer to something that you live with intelligently and wisely, because you know this is necessary for your body at this stage. This is how it feels when you're going through menopause. It's all right for me to say that, I don't have menopause, obviously, but I my wife's got menopause, and I know what, you girls, it's tough, but it's not wrong because it's tough. Yeah, it's not wrong. It's life, and if we can, the less we mustn't define ourselves because of our condition. It's not our condition, but how we deal with that condition. Yeah, and how we allow that condition to go through its own timely process and come to a point of healing, if it does. And if it doesn't, if it's something that can't be healed, then it's something that honestly you can learn to live with it. Yeah, and not in a misery, but in a way that you will learn so much about yourself from this condition. By being with the feeling of it, you will find things will come back to you that you've forgotten about. And being with the sensations of distress in your body, you will find they will change, they will release, and they will unravel the story of you that you've forgotten about and overlooked in time. It's all inside your own body. And this is going, don't expect this to happen like magically, quickly. Some people it does, some people it doesn't. It's not better if it does, it's not worse if it doesn't. What it is, it's the correct approach to our well-being. Let your body take care of itself, and get over this idea that you have control to make your body do what you want it to do and be what you want it to be. Even if you put on a bit of weight, you've actually going to find that you've got that weight there for a reason that
Oh,
is
I
not
just literally went
known.
through this. I
Oh,
literally
did
just went
you?
through. Yeah, I went through. I was doing some research on menopause because I'm going right in through it. And one of the wisdom, so it was from Susan Weed. She said actually that 10-pound weight gain that's supposed to happen during
Yeah,
this process, it's only actually supposed to last a year or two, or a max 5 years. It depends, but you're given 10 pounds of extra fat during menopause because it helps buffer your hormones so you don't feel as crappy. And then everyone's like, oh, I don't want the belly weight, I don't want the weight gain, and they just want, it's this impatience. Now I know nothing about that. I'm a very patient person. But
you're so full
it's
of
that
shit.
impatience, the impatience of like, get it
Yeah,
fixed, or get it off of me, or get it, or
yeah,
or I'll see patients come as well with like child that has a fever, right? Panicking. Make it go away. My child is sick. I
yeah,
feel this sensation. I don't like this, and projection, and they make drama and bring to the ER
yeah,
when it's unnecessary, and all this stuff, right? And so it's really about getting the parent to self-regulate in that
mm,
moment of stress, so
yeah,
that they can be calm, and that they can feel, and they can react and respond properly to the scenario, right? But you
yeah,
see this a lot. Like, I would just want the
yeah,
tumor gone. Just cut it out of me. Just burn it out of me. I just want it to go away. It's like,
mm,
no, that's
mm,
your gift.
mm,
Why do you want to throw your gift in the garbage? That tumor, that scenario, whatever, that there's a gift there for you. And if you're really able to accept the whole experience, it transforms, and it can happen.
yeah.
Ironically, it can happen quickly when you do it
Yeah, of
that
course it
way,
can. It can.
right?
I don't want people to listen to me or to us and put pressure on themselves that it should happen quickly. It can
Right.
happen very quickly, but
And
it will happen
everything.
at its own
Yes.
pace. Yeah, but it will
Yes.
happen at its own pace because the body will take it step by step. And you don't, it's amazing how much pain there is inside of one human being, as you know, from your work
Oh
that you
yeah.
do. Um, it's mind-boggling how much agony and pain is bottled up inside of one human being. And how a person can go on living with that amount of pain inside of them. And then when they hit the healing process, and at first they're going, this is crap, I want it over and done with. But
Mm.
if they really keep going, they start to empathize with themselves, have more empathy and more understanding that, wow, especially as they start to get the memories back of the types of traumas and shit they've been put through in their life that they've completely blocked out. And if it is that deep, and usually very commonly it is in this day and age, so probably always, so you find that the appreciation or the empathy for themselves turns into also a deeper interest in the process. It becomes fascinating, not as a self-obsession either. That's a bit, not thinking about myself all the time, but it
Mm.
becomes very interesting because you start to learn about yourself from the condition in yourself as it unravels and heals. And you learn about yourself in such a way that you could not learn and become whole at everything, much more than your tumor becomes known to you and understood to you, making you more equipped to live on through the rest of your life with greater depth and understanding of what it is to be a human being. Yeah, so I mean, just you could throw things in, but I know we're probably nearly going to wrap it up, aren't we?
Yeah.
Do you think?
I think we could do like a marathon or something of this type.
I
We could do
know, and
like a
I'm thinking,
fundraiser marathon, where we like
wow, that's not a bad idea.
that'd be kind
And
of
I even
cool.
thought sometimes if there's a way for us to get people to, they wanted to throw questions in because,
Yeah.
yeah, but
We could
it's a
think
really
about
serious thing.
something like that. Yeah, that I mean
Yeah,
really
really.
interactive. Yeah. We
I'll
could.
I'll talk to I'll talk to Tim Botner from one of the podcasts I've done. He should link up with you actually at some point.
Mm.
He's wanting to get a community together in he's a German. He wants to get a community living like-minded people. He's a movement guy, but he's very switched on, unique
Nice.
man. Only
Hmm.
young guy, 32 or something. But I thought you would be a good person for you and him to hook up as well because of that potential at some point, forming a community if that was still on the cards.
Yeah.
You mentioned it once before, but yeah, I just love talking with you. And I know we can talk a lot, but I don't want people to get overwhelmed. It is a gentle step-by-step process, but it's like I always found, it's like the slower you take it, the faster it will take you, is one of my sayings,
Hmm.
and it really does with the healing process because you're not rushing it, you're not pushing it, and you're not overlooking things along the way and prematurely overriding things. And so the development is a total person development, not a partial development. Even the word feeling can sometimes be, I'm noticing people are struggling with this. And so I want to make it simple again and
Sensation,
say,
right?
yeah, I use the word feeling already, but just come back to the bodily sensations wherever that happens to be in your body, and let your body take care of that sensation, even if you're squirming. Yeah, even if it
Yeah.
hurts, even if
Yeah.
it's agonizing, just let your body take care of that. And that's where the deepest changes and the most rapid healings occur. Yeah. So this is very important. So it's even simpler. It's just back into the physical sensation of you and see what you discover about yourself there. And before you start looking outside into the so-called spiritual realms of life, um, understand your body and how that functions first. Get yourself grounded there first, because you're not going to get grounded out and all that stuff. Yeah.
Mm.
I know I'm being pretty bold saying that, but I'm just going to say
You need a
it. So
you need a homeschool curriculum for children on this. Something that children can um, look at and digest. That's,
I need that. You mean I should do
no, I
that? Are
mean,
you saying?
no, what I
Uh,
mean to say is like it would
yeah.
be a really great app option to have a kids version,
Oh,
something for children, a
yeah,
unit for children, or even a written unit for a homeschooling mom to be able to teach her
for
child
sure.
this information, how to regulate
It's
themselves,
like
how to feel. you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they need. Yeah, they need to be all right. Oh yeah, let's all right. Next
I
project.
didn't say you have to.
Didn't
Feel
you?
the overwhelm,
I was
Matthew.
sure.
Just, just
I
go.
was sure you said I have to.
I
Anyway.
lost my cat, so many cats this last year that that's been a
Oh,
lot of trauma. It's been like trauma on
oh,
trauma and this
oh,
big
wow.
bolus of trauma, just trying to process it. And that's why I
Okay.
kind of just I retreat away
Yeah,
to
no, no,
do
good.
that. And
You
it's
have
just what
to.
happens. And then I'm there, I'm in
All right.
that.
Yeah,
And then, oh,
yeah,
what's going on over here and over
yeah,
there, and then this
yeah.
person needs my help, and then and so
Oh no,
it's like
don't do that.
this, and
Mm,
it's
mm.
it's been tough for I'm not gonna lie, it's been pretty hard work. And then menopause on top of it, which what happens is you're actually, I learned that the woman's brain sloughs off unneeded material. It actually goes through a molt, like a complete physical transformation is happening. And the memories shift, and so you kind of lose your memories. You lose connection to stuff for a while. It's like it unplugs you
Okay.
to plug you
Yep.
back in,
Yep.
remade. And you feel kind of lost. So all of a sudden, what you're doing, you're on your trajectory, you're doing your thing, right? And then you're like, oh, da 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 da, so what's going on? Like you're like, was I supposed to do something today? And you're in this other place, this totally uncharted territory. And it can be very frightening. It could be
Very
alluring. It can be
scary.
kind of
Yeah.
freeing. There's all kinds of ways you can look at
Yeah.
it, but it's definitely daunting because you're not expecting it. It's not really something that you're warned about much. It's not even really
No.
discussed. I
No.
didn't really know. It was,
Wow.
and you're like, oh, what the hell? As a thinker, as someone who has to like think and read and talk, and
Yeah.
then here you are,
You
you're
can't do
really into
that.
sensation. It puts you on purpose into all your sensations. It really does. I
Yeah.
really feel
Good.
it's a healing, transformative, cathartic time for a huge transformation. Think of like a woman who goes through menarche, then menses, then pregnancy, and then menopause. Those are all there, change you
They're
considerably.
massive.
And men have their own thing. They have their own cycle. It's not that men don't
Yeah.
have metamorphosis. It's just a different
No.
way of the cycling. The cycling's different. Ours is like
Mm,
big
mm.
chunks, and males is like every day. Like, and we're just big pieces,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
it's really dramatic. And so it's fascinating to learn how to be gentle with yourself and to
Yeah.
slow down and to embrace moment to moment and to reject rushing. And I have to learn how to not react to rushing because I still do. Like if someone tries to rush me,
You get
like,
drawn
don't
in.
rush me, don't do
I
that. Like I
don't
don't
rush
want,
you.
what? What's that?
Oh, you mean you say don't rush me? Not
Yeah.
you don't just get in a rush. You actually say don't rush me.
Don't rush me. Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
that's good, isn't it? Because that's what you need right now, isn't it?
Yeah, I reject it real hard. Like I
You,
really, if it starts to want to, I cut it off. I won't do it,
yeah.
which is really interesting
Good.
because before I was just always a sucker, meaning, oh, I'll just suffer and do it. I'll
Yeah.
just lose something for the scenario, and that
Mm,
got me to
mm.
burnout stage, obviously too, right? And it's like, no, oh no, that's a hard. I'm not doing that thing, right? And I'm learning new tactics on how to
Good.
interact with that in a healthy way, right? Because it's like you're being born anew in your
Yeah.
thinking. So
No.
just when you think you've arrived, so this is the thing, people think they're going to get better and like, yes, but no, but
No.
you're never going to arrive somewhere and be like, well, I did it. I got it all sorted out. I
No.
figured out the entire world. I know exactly how everything runs, and we're good, right? Yeah. So I'm just
And
gonna
then
sit
and then,
here
you, then
and
your brain goes to shit and you don't even know your name.
yeah, yeah.
And it's fuck all you can do about it.
And Parkinson's, you know what I mean? So yeah. And Parkinson's, I found out a lot of it is just the nervous system through the jaw being disconnected or incorrect. And you can actually do a jaw correction. And people who are shaking with Parkinson's just get up and walk.
Oh my God.
I know, right? Like, look at what we're still discovering. Look at what we're
Yeah, all the
still
time. Yep.
identifying. We don't know shit. We've got to stop this. Oh, I want to go to someone with that who's a know-it-all thing, right? Because
No, you got to work it
like
out yourself.
And I
Yeah.
stopped. I actually went, oh, I don't want to be that either. Like, I don't want to
Mm.
be, I don't like when, oh, you're so smart. No, don't know. Like, you are too. You are smart too.
Yeah.
You look for the intelligence that you're in what you're gathering for yourself, and then you own that shit. And don't just
Yeah.
put someone on a pedestal
Don't
and
put it
make
on
them,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that
Make
whole
you do it.
hero worship. Yeah, and it's the Hollywood stuff, that behavior, right?
Yeah.
Putting people in different layers than you. It's like
It's very strong, particularly in
very
the
strong.
America and Canada, I think, but especially I think America's stronger, but America and Canada around the world, I'm thinking that's a very strong indoctrination over there, the Hollywood image, isn't it? The putting people up there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really destructive.
It
Yeah.
really is. And
Yeah.
so
No,
and
it's
then
worse.
I'm like in this we're in this place where we're communicating with people, masses of people that we've never met. And so we have like
Yeah.
I take responsibility for that. So if I feel like it's not going in the direction that is the best, or I don't, or my reflections are distorted and I'm not sure, then I pull back and I wait. And like
Good.
till I get more information or until I clear whatever it is, because what's the point of that? I mean, I see this a lot in out there where just people are posting stuff just to
Just
get
keep going.
attention.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
And they just put all crap everywhere and then people are just
Yeah.
overloaded. And what are they learning really? I mean,
Yeah. Nothing. Mm.
nothing.
Not
And
listening. So
yeah,
I
they're
hope
not.
today. So today I had that feeling about you today, and I think I wrote in the notes when I said to you,
Yeah.
we can take it slowly or take it. Yeah. So I think today was at a pretty okay pace. Yeah.
No, I knew,
Yeah.
no, these are the things I look forward to.
Yeah. Good. I know it was
because
really,
because it's
really good.
authentic.